4 divisions, 4 hosts, all battling it out for the Holy GrAHL of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL Podcast with Andrew Rinaldi, Deana Weinheimer, Jeremy Paul, Michael Liu, and Zack Power.
Well, hello and welcome back. This is episode 24 of Field Pass Hockey's flagship AHL podcast, the Holy GrAHL. Now, if you're looking for information on ancient relics, folklore, or Monty Python, you are in the wrong place. Sorry about that, but if you are looking for information on the American Hockey League and their yearly race to their Holy GrAHL, the Calder Cup, well, you are 100% in the right place. But before we get too far into this, like always, we're just going to go around the screen here and introduce ourselves to anyone who may be new. Guys, I'm going to throw a curveball at you this episode. We're going to go in reverse alphabetical order. Poor Zack is always having to go last. I'm going to give him first dibs, and he's going to lead us off in the introductions.
Thanks. I'm Zack Power, and I'm here for old ancient relics, that's for sure. I'm here to watch Tucson, San Jose, and Cleveland all sit at the bottom of the AHL. It's a tradition as old as time. Pass it off to one of you guys.
Wow. I don't know how I can follow that one up. I have to think about it all the time because we're a very front of the alphabet heavy podcast. So I'm like, where do I fall in this? So what's up, everyone? My name is Jeremy Paul. I'm in my first season with Field Pass Hockey, covering beat for the Rochester Americans and hopping on every Tuesday with you fine folks. Well, I should say most every Tuesday. So it's good to be out of the penalty box after having missed last week.
I'm glad to have everybody back. Hey, y'all, this is Deana Weinheimer. I'm the AHL editor and Cleveland Monsters correspondent here at Field Pass Hockey, and I'm ready to talk some AHL Trade Deadline news. I don't know about the rest of you guys.
Yeah, if you're here for ancient relics or hockey, if you're hearing this voice, you're in the right space. And that voice is me. That's Andrew Rinaldi. I am the beat writer here for the Chicago Wolves and Grand Rapids Griffins here at Field Pass Hockey. And yeah, if you thought we were done with trades last week, you are mistaken. We got a big one here.
Yeah, so we'll be getting into that all very shortly. But first, we do need to cover a little bit of breaking news. First, on behalf of the entire Field Pass Hockey family, we do want to extend our warmest wishes to the family of Eugene Melnyk as well as everyone associated with the Ottawa Senators and the Belleville Senators organizations. Melnyk unfortunately passed away on Monday, March 28th, following an illness. He was the owner, governor, and the chairman of the Ottawa Senators and the AHL's Belleville Senators, among many, many, many other noteworthy endeavors.
I mean, I just, absolutely shocking news, I think, for all of us to hear, Eugene Melnyk was somebody who kept the hockey team in a town like Ottawa, even through all of their struggles. And what's sad about it, and especially now from our side of things, is you've got Belleville heating up here right now. They look pretty good. They're destined to make an AHL playoff run. And you've got the Senators building for something great here in the next few years. And it's always sad to know that an owner that's instrumental in the building of the team isn't going to be able to see that in person. So, yeah, echoing your thoughts, Deana, just all of our thoughts are with the Melnyk family.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to move on to another piece of news. That's breaking. Grand Rapids Griffins forward Dominik Shine has actually been suspended for 1 game as a consequence of his actions in a game at Ontario on March 27th. He received an automatic 1-game suspension under the provisions of Rule 46.11 for accumulating his 3rd instigator penalty over the course of a season. He will be missing Grand Rapids' upcoming game on Friday, April 1st versus the Texas Stars.
Yeah, it was a rough road trip for the Griffins there this past weekend. And so Shiner is the kind of guy who, no matter what, in any situation, is always going to stand up for his teammates. He's been just kind of that big brother to a lot of these young forwards on this team. And Tyler Spezia, he was coming down the wing, took a high hit from Jared Anderson Dolan on Ontario. Dom didn't like it, and as the instigator rule kind of implies, he didn't really give him a chance. The gloves came off and it's like, all right, you're gonna have to answer for that. And as you can tell by the 3, he's done this a number of times in the season, which has endeared him to the locker room, to the coaching staff, and to the fans as a guy who says, if you're gonna make a questionable hit like that, well, I'm going to make you answer for it, whether you want to or not. And these guys do, but this is the ruling. You get too many of these, and the league kind of comes down and says, all right, you're gonna have to cool your jets here, So it's tough. Grand Rapids, they had both of their goalies called up to Detroit now with the injuries that have been happening up there. Spezia's kind of got a question mark on his health. They've lost Ryan Murphy. He's been out for the last couple games with an injury. So you're looking at where this team's been going. This hurts. I mean, Shiner he saw red and was going to go. He wasn't thinking, oh well, if what was going to happen in the next game. He was looking at right now and saying his guy was down. I'm going to have to step up for him. So it is what it is. And he said that's the league's ruling. But, I don't think Shine's a guy who shies away from that kind of stuff. And if he had the opportunity, he'd probably do it again. And it just puts Grand Rapids in such a tough position coming up. I mean, every point is needed where they're at, and they have just hanging on with guys on PTOs and everything. So hopefully, the Griffs can keep fighting and find a way to win without one of the big heart and soul guys on the team.
Now it's time to go ahead and take a look at our week in review. We're going to go ahead and kick it off. It's a new episode, which means a brand new player of the week. And once again, the AHL is staying out in that Western Conference to award their players of the week. Personally, I think they're only looking at, the goals scored right now, which we'll talk a little bit later. But if you want goals, if goals, points, anything like that, you got to go to the Western Conference. But this time it is San Diego goals forward Alex Limoges, who has been awarded the AHL Player of the Week for the period ending March 27th, 2022. Now, Limoges tallied 7 goals and 1 assist in 4 games last week for San Diego in a move to solidify their position in the Pacific Division playoff race. Now, last Tuesday, Limoges notched a goal and an assist to help them pass Henderson 3-1. On Wednesday is when he got his first pro hat trick, including the tying and the game-winning goals, as the goals rallied to defeat Tucson 4-3. Then Limoges netted another game-winning goal in Saturday's 5-1 victory over Ontario, capping the week with 2 more goals and a 7-5 loss to division-leading Stockton on Sunday. Wow, what a busy week for the young man.
Well, you also have to think about it too, and I don't want to kind of allude any further past into the episode because I know that we're definitely going to be talking about this at some point. But I mean, for the San Diego Gulls, it's a part of a tight division race in the Pacific Division. I mean, when you're trying to get out of that bottom middle ground of the Pacific Division, you really want to kind of solidify your spot. And like having a player like Limoges on your team is the best way to kind of do that, is, to be able to generate some offense and kind of spark the bench a little bit, especially against some pretty like fair and sizable teams. I mean, Henderson, like they shouldn't be, taken off easily. And Stockton obviously has been doing very well all throughout the season. So when we kind of talk about like a player like Limoges, this is kind of a player that you do need going in to the back half of your season.
Absolutely. That's a player that has to stay hot. I mean, he's netted team best 20 goals, adding 12 assists, 32 points in 50 games. And this is just his first pro season. So if you would have asked me at the beginning of the season who the difference maker was going to be, I wouldn't have had him on this list whatsoever.
And that makes it all the more better too when you get a rookie to be able to kind of spark some of the older guys too. Like that's, again, it's one of those little things that you just need, that someone to kind of ignite your team a little bit, especially when the points matter the most.
Yeah, tied for 4th among AHL rookies in goals, owns his share of the league rookie lead with 10 power play markers. Wow, what a performance he's turning out. I mean, is it maybe enough to compete for Rookie of the Year noms? I guess here in a few weeks we're going to find out.
A couple of good names on there.
Couple of good names.
Just a couple. All right. Well, we do have a milestone. Well, I guess a couple milestones to celebrate. So this past Friday, Hershey's Brett Leason skated in his 100th AHL game, but unfortunately for him and the Bears, it wasn't much of a cause to celebrate because they ended up falling 2-0 against division rivals Providence. And then I do have one more milestone for you guys. Now, the Silver Knights, they haven't been in the American Hockey League all that long, but they're going to be ushering in a brand new era already as they are set to play in their first game at the Dollar Loan Center, which is their brand new state-of-the-art arena in the heart of Henderson, Nevada. Now, the puck drop is scheduled for April 2nd, Saturday at 7 Pacific against the Bakersfield Condors. So if you are in the area and want to go, now the team is asking that you both arrive early and, hey, have some fun and stay late. They're going to have a silver carpet event featuring all of the Henderson Silver Knights players, the coaches, some special guests that we don't know who that is yet. Plus, after the game, they're going to be having, I believe, like some jersey raffles. And then, of course, before the game, you can enjoy a DJ, inflatables, yard games, food trucks, and more in an area that they're calling the Tilt Yard out front of their main area in the arena. So it actually sounds like a really good time, and I hope they do a little bit of live streaming coverage of that.
Yeah, just kind of following in the footsteps of their parent club. You know, it's a game with that added Vegas flair and the show to go with it. And I think this is kind of exactly what the doctor ordered in terms of just getting, you know, your brand new team and you want to get the fans involved and kind of get, you know, your build. It's all about building that fan base right out there, and it's still very young, and I'm sure you're going to see Coachella kind of take some pointers from how they market this event. And I mean, the new arena looks beautiful. I've seen some snapshots from the inside, and I can't wait for this to be the next step in Henderson's history here. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and I know I would be just as excited for a dollar loan myself. So. I know it's tough.
There it
is. Out here.
There it is. Oh my. All right. Well, we're not going to spend too much more time talking about things that happened in the news because we have a big piece of news to cover, and that is the American Hockey League Trade Deadline. So for those of you that are kind of new to the AHL, just need a little bit of a primer here. Yes, there is a difference between the NHL Trade Deadline and the AHL Trade Deadline. This primarily impacts guys that are going to be on, that AHL deal. You don't really see too many guys on that NHL, AHL two-way contract. And once this ends, so this ended 3 p.m. on Monday. That means no guys that are on active rosters right now can be moved to play in the rest of this season or the postseason. Now, that does not mean that you're not going to see what is known as an ATO, which is an amateur tryout contract. Because, of course, you have some overseas leagues that are ending their seasons, as well as men's collegiate hockey. We're getting down into the final stages of that. So you're going to see a lot of guys. I mean, we've already seen quite a few start signing amateur tryout contracts, as well as their entry-level deals, and maybe even AHL contracts for next season. So, okay, with all of that in place, let's go ahead and talk about the moves. There aren't as many moves at the AHL Trade Deadline as there are in the National Hockey League, but this was actually a little busy for an AHL Trade Deadline, guys. But first, we need to talk about what is, in my mind, the most perplexing move. Now, the NHL affiliates of the number 1 and number 2 in the AHL Atlantic Division teaming up for a trade where only one team actually got a player, and that's defenseman Brady Lyle being moved from the Providence Bruins to the Springfield Thunderbirds. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but you look at, Providence, I want to say that if you look at their roster right now, they've got like 11 or 12 defensemen. And if you take a look at the Springfield roster, you look at their defensive core, and you've got guys that, as you alluded to, I mean, guys signing out of college, Matt Kessel joining the team. You've got Luke Witkowski, who joined the team in a trade last week. And then you got Brady Lyle. You've only got 8 defensemen on roster in Springfield. So obviously the Thunderbirds needed help on the blue line, and, Providence was willing to oblige. And, can't say that I necessarily understand it, but, you make deals as you see fit and what makes the most sense for your team. And somehow, some way, Providence found themselves liking this one.
And what kind of gets me too is, especially in the AHL, where you play the same teams in the division so often, that you would actually go to another contender in the division as well, someone that you're going to be fiercely competitive with. And so for me, like, that's kind of the big thing that I kind of worry about too, is now you're going to go against this player not only a couple times, but possibly in the playoffs too. So you hope it doesn't bite you in the butt.
Well, and we talked about it too, like, just what, like, as a player who is traded for future considerations, like, how miffed would you be? And I feel like if I were, especially in this situation, getting traded from one competitor to another in a division, wouldn't you say that would light a little bit of a fire for Brady Lyle? Like, when it comes toward postseason time, it's like, if we see this matchup, I think Brady Lyle is going to take something personally. So.
I mean, and that's one thing I didn't understand. Not only was it moved in division, but he got moved to the team directly above them in the standings for, like you said, future considerations. I mean, granted, this is a player who has played 48 games with the Providence Bruins this season, 2 goals, 7 assists. I mean, in his rookie campaign, he skated in 25 games with the P Bruins in 22-21, 7 goals, 7 assists. So it's not like he's not a guy that's going to show up on the score sheet, but I don't know about that move at all. Like, you would think you would want to keep the depth for yourself and not help out a competitor.
Well, there's got to be more to the story. And for the team, I'd be, it wouldn't be so bad if they were being traded in the same division to someone like Lehigh Valley or to another top team in another division like Utica or something, but to a direct competitor who you play very often, I don't know.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to another trade. And I'm sure Andrew has a lot of feelings on this next topic. So in case you guys didn't notice, the Chicago Wolves were the busiest at the trade deadline by far, bringing in 3 new players. But that also means that they are saying goodbye to one of their own in the process. So first came the announcement that veteran forward Richard Panik had been loaned to the Wolves by the New York Islanders. He skated in 194 AHL games, 521 in the NHL. Panik, well, he knows what it takes to win at the pro level. And I saw something on Twitter where it was kind of a joke by the Wolves GM or just somebody in the organization. They were talking to the guys over with the Islanders, and they were talking about how they have a bit of a too many veteran problem with the Bridgeport Islanders. And he just said, yeah, I'll take that problem on for you. And thus the trade happened. It was all very tongue in cheek, but I thought it was a good play at humor there.
Yeah, that was Wolves GM Wendell Young with that legendary quote. And yeah, fans in Chicago, they're very familiar with Panik's time with the Blackhawks. So it's another face that they've seen around in years past that's going to be coming around again to see a local team make a run for a cup. But yeah, it's another one of those, again, perplexing situations where here's a guy. I mean, granted, it wasn't traded in division, so it's a bit different from the last one, but you got a guy who's got over 500 NHL games, and he's just getting loaned out. There's not even future considerations involved in this. It's just, here, have them. And, I could be silly and call it a panic move and all that by Bridgeport, but I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, I just did that, Jeremy. At the end of the day,
yeah, my dollar loan joke isn't nearly as well. Maybe it is.
It's kind of a move where Panik is that far down the depth chart in Bridgeport, and maybe they're just doing him a favor and saying, here you go get yourself a ring there, son. even though he's probably older than everyone else in the Wolves locker room by this point. But I digress. I mean, yeah, you're right. The Wolves have been very busy, and I'm gonna touch on the one trade that's really got me, but I'll let you lead off with it first, Deana.
All right. So next, the next move came down actually from the Carolina Hurricanes, Chicago's NHL affiliate, about their first trade. In a move to shore up the Wolves' defense, Carolina acquired defenseman Tarmo Reunanen from the New York Rangers in exchange for forward Maxim Letunov. Now, he's already providing a bit of a ray of sunshine into the Chicago Wolves team, already scoring their first goal. As we're talking and recording, the Chicago Wolves are actually playing in Cleveland against the Monsters. And who got the first goal of the game? Reunanen. Well, this just adds on to his 2 goals and 15 assists for 17 points and a +8 rating in 40 games. That was all with Hartford this season, which is good enough for 12th in scoring on the Wolves as of the time of the trade deadline, which was 4th among team defensemen. Now, of course, Letunov off to the Hartford Wolfpack. For a team that's even on goals for and goals against, they desperately needed a player that could provide some offense. They hope that Letunov is absolutely the answer.
Yeah, and he was definitely a fan favorite here in Chicago. Letunov was a guy who could just do it all. He was, just one of those versatile forwards. He had presence on the power play. He was reliable on the penalty kill. And 5-on-5, he played both ends of the ice really, really well. But I think perhaps his biggest contribution for the Wolves this season was off the ice. Now, they have a couple of young Russians who came over this season. Artyom Sarakov was a defender, kind of an unknown, this 20-year-old coming over from the KHL with no NHL deal attached to him, which you don't see that very often. A lot of these young Russians kind of want to hone their game back home where it's a little more comfortable. And so it was really daring with this kid to come on over. And with Letunov signed in the offseason, they immediately roomed them together and just kind of showing this young kid the ropes of, kind of being that bridge in between the cultures and helping them with the language and everything. And then last month when Pyotr Kochetkov came over, same deal. 22-year-old Russian kid, barely speaks a word of English, and Max can be that guy to, kind of get him along, get him comfortable, so that way, they're not worried that they can't go outside of their homes because they can't speak any English, and they can just focus on their hockey games. And really both players have thrived, and in part because of the man that I like to call Dadushka, which is Russian for grandpa. And Max, you're not that old, don't take that personally, but he really was, I believe, a calming presence for these two younger Russian players. And I think that kind of value to have these two kids, one in Sarakov, who's just starting to get into his game, and another in Kochetkov, who's just a blue chip prospect for Carolina down here, and has just been absolutely on fire since day one. You can't overstate his importance, both on and off the ice. And I think that's where this trade's gonna hurt. And but it's paid immediate dividends so far. Reunanen with the goal already. We'll see how he fits in on the rest of that blue line. Adding Panik, and they added another defenseman. I don't want to step on your toes there, Deana, but yeah, Chicago's been real busy. They're loading up. And just in case Carolina needs Jalen Chatfield or Joey Keane to come up, they're not going to miss a beat. And they got their eyes on the Calder Cup, and they smell blood in the water.
Well, let's just go ahead and talk about that. To round out the afternoon, the Wolves also announced that defenseman Chris Bigraw from the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins would be joining the roster in exchange for, once again, guys, future considerations. Now, Bigraw appeared in 28 games with the Pens this season, tallying 3 goals, 7 assists for 10 points. In his 7 seasons as a pro, he has recorded 24 goals, 24 goals, 93 assists for 117 points over 267 AHL games with Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Lehigh Valley, Hartford, San Antonio, and Lake Erie. Now, for me, this seems like the Pens are just opening up a roster spot for some of the youth in the organization. They're one of the players that have been in on some of those ATO contracts, those college players coming up and making the move into their pro careers. But for Big GrAHL, this is an opportunity to win a championship and work towards something really special with that Wolves team.
Yeah, just bulking up depth and, like I said, gearing up for that run. And it's a chance to prove himself on a good team that's going to make a deep playoff run. You never know what's going to happen in the offseason. He plays well, earns himself onto another contract. And, I mean, for a lot of these guys, unfortunately, that's kind of what it is. You never know what's going to happen next season. So you just got to put yourself in a position to succeed. And, the rest is going to figure itself out from there.
All right, we're going to move on to the Rochester Americans, where I'm sure Jeremy has some thoughts on this move. Now, while the team has some strength in goal, thanks to players like JJ Peterka, Michael Mersch, and Jack Quinn, among others, their defense needed desperate help. So the Amerks went out and landed defenseman Mark Alt from the San Jose Barracuda in exchange for forward Mason Jobst. Now, this is a prime case of landing a veteran to fill a critical vacancy on the roster. I mean, after all, the Amerks are currently on the outside looking in at the playoffs. At least they were at the trade deadline. I don't know if they played or moved since then. My apologies. But their minus 23 goal differential isn't exactly helping. And, it's not the goals for that are the problem. In fact, as of Monday afternoon, Rochester was second in the American Hockey League and top in the East for goals for. On the flip side, they're also tied for dead last in goals against. Now, Alt has been a solid defender, 46 games with San Jose, 3 goals, 5 assists. Minus 18 leaves a bit to be desired, but overall, he's nine-year pro. His average rating is a -1. So it's just an anomaly this year, I think. I think he's going to be a solid add to that Amerks squad.
I mean, he's not going to hurt. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's not really anything that I think is going to, when you look at it, Mason Jobst, great depth forward for the Amerks, provided a lot of critical, offense when some of the top guys who were in Buffalo and when they just weren't on their game. But at the end of the day, if you're giving up Jobst for somebody who could potentially give you a little bit of veteran presence on the blue line, potentially save your season. I mean, to your point, to be leading the East in goals, but to still have a minus 23 goal differential. I mean, can you believe I'm saying that? It just sounds absolutely ludicrous. I remember my season preview for the Amerks. I said, well, hey, as long as they don't allow 4 goals a game like they did during the COVID-shortened 21 season, things will look good. I didn't think they were going to actually challenge me on that. I thought that it felt like a pretty safe bet to say that this team wasn't going to give up 4 goals a game. And I'm, I think I'm still right, but I just can't. It's bad. It's bad. And if they don't shore up that blue line, if they don't start getting some quality goaltending, they're going to be catching this one from the outside looking in. But I do think adding somebody like Alt to the lineup isn't going to hurt. So we'll see how it goes.
When I look at alt stats too, you also have to kind of think about as well, even some of the best players on San Jose right now have really negative records on the plus minus. I kind of think back to Scott Reedy and the insane plus minus stat that someone told me a little while back. I mean, when we kind of talk about that team, it's, it's been a part of that team. So now this is kind of a better opportunity for him to have a chance at the Calder Cup. So I think that he's going to bring a lot to the Americans as well.
Now, of course, moving the other way, we talked about Mason Jobst. Now, he's moving to a team that is 11 points out of a playoff spot, which, not surprisingly, is going to end his season sooner than he expected. But it's going to give him some nice experience in that Western Conference and a really tough Pacific Division. This season, he's notched 4 goals, 9 assists for 13 points in 26 games. In his third year, he has 14 goals, 22 assists, and 36 points between Rochester, Bridgeport, and Bigmanton. It's been a while since we've actually said that name, huh, guys?
You're legally supposed to say bingo.
Bingo.
That's true. But I'm actually a little excited about the trade for Mason. I think he's struggled to really find his way, because I think he's played for teams that have been pretty solid, especially at the forward position throughout his career. And maybe that's also the homer in me, the Ohio State product. I'm just rooting for him. But nevertheless, we'll see how it goes out there on the West Coast.
Those Ohio State alumni will always have a soft spot in my heart because I don't live that far from their rink. So, but that's it for the moves for this AHL trade deadline. Any surprises, guys? I mean, for me, it seemed like the bounce of power truly stayed intact. Chicago obviously were the winners of this one, but I do like that trade by Rochester. I mean, it was a need that they needed probably more than any other team in the race, and they found a way to fix it. Whether it works or not, I guess remains to be seen.
I just kind of want to reiterate that the Chicago moves that they made were very carefully laid. It's like a Jenga block, really, because Chicago is, like I said, such a powerful team that they've kind of built up and structured. And clearly, they're definitely going for the finish line, and that's kind of their seems to be their main goal. Is they're not trying to rebuild, they're not just trying to teeter around the middle and see where we go. But it seems like they're really gung ho for the finish. The window's open for Chicago right now, and you'll see a lot more trades like this over the next few years, where they're just going to try to keep going while the window's open, and especially in the AHL, the window doesn't stay open very long. So this is they made a lot of really good moves, and the same with the Americans. They did pick up some good talent there coming back from San Jose. They sent away some good stuff as well, but I think it was a pretty good trade for both sides.
It's such a more intriguing deadline, I think, compared to the NHL, where you have the future draft picks or the young prospects who aren't under contract and everything. Here it's it's roster player for roster player, or, in the case of Chicago and Bridgeport, hey, here's my free veteran for you on the house. So I'm still trying to understand the intricacies of some of that, but yeah, I kind of, Zach kind of hit it right on cue. I mean, if you weren't convinced that Chicago was gunning for a Calder Cup yet, well, what more evidence do you need that it's championship or bust over there in Rosemont?
Now here's the question: did they do too much? Are they going to disrupt things, or do you think that things are going to be pretty good?
I'll get on that later on in the show. How about that?
Good deal. Sounds good.
What I want to know is what was going through the heads of, say, the powers that be in Ontario and Stockton whenever they saw Chicago start loading up a little bit. Do you think they tried to make some moves and maybe just didn't get it in? Or do you just think that they kind of laughed it off and said, we're still going to beat them anyway? That's what I want to know, because I figured once Chicago started loading up, it's like, oh, you think, those top Pacific Division teams have to be doing something. And then end of the day, they didn't.
Chicago was really sneaky about it. I remember reading the tweet from Patrick Williams saying oh, well, there's not going to be a whole lot heading up in this AHL deadline here. And then 5 minutes after he tweeted that out, bam, 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 Chicago just dropped all their cards on the table. And I almost feel like at that point it was too late. Everyone else was like, oh my God, look at what they're doing. And then, it's kind of like the basketball team in March Madness that'll wait till the shot clock's down to 1 before jacking up a 3 and then hitting it. It's you're almost hit by the shock so much there's no time to respond at that point. So for Ontario, I think it was just a matter of hoping that the Kings ahead of them get a little healthier, and they're going to get reinforcements just naturally when they got to trim the roster down up there, bringing back Sean Dursey and everything. And I imagine, the Kings, lo and behold, they got a good team, but I can't imagine they're going to have a super deep playoff run. And Ontario is gonna be right there in the thick of it. I think them and Stockton are just gonna have an all-out brawl for that last Pacific spot. So you're gonna be getting reinforcements from up there. I think they're gonna feel. I think they're feeling all right, and I think Stockton is more looking towards, we got to get past Ontario before we can even start thinking about Chicago. Whereas Chicago, I don't want to say, they're just kind of going to blow away the Central, but you kind of get that feeling, and they're looking for that long-term game. They're saying, all right, how do we match up with some of these guys out west? And are, in the case, like I said earlier, if a guy in Carolina gets hurt, like last year, Max Lajoie had to go up and play a couple games in the playoffs for the Canes. If you lose a guy like that in the playoffs and you don't have anyone to come in and like Big Rod to come and fill the void, you're in trouble. So, they're getting ready for any and every situation, and it'll be really interesting to see if this how this works out for them as we get closer to the playoffs.
I think that Andrew kind of hit it right there, where like Stockton and the Reign are kind of looking right now and saying, okay, well, this kind of puts into perspective a little bit about the playoff format that we have coming up. It's not like one team from that side of the division is guaranteed to go to the finals. I mean, basically they have to duke it out until you have the top of the Pacific division. Then you have to go against Chicago, who's bulked up. If you had to go against Chicago in the finals, you might have had a bit of a chance. You might have, things might have been changed. They might have been a little more worn out by then. But by the time that they get around to the second last round, really, this is when, Chicago is going to be rolling. They're going to be steamrolling. And I think that, I don't know if, the Reign and the Heat were both on hold with the AHL, trying to get their trades in like the NHL. But like, for me, I kind of think that there has to be some sort of shock and kind of thinking, okay, well, we're going to have to go through the ringer when we play against, team 1 or 2. And then we're going to have to go against Chicago, who's been absolutely in their own atmosphere, really. And then they just picked up a lot of key players as they try to fit through the window. So,
well, now that I'm looking at all of the paper transactions that Ontario and Los Angeles did at the NHL trade deadline, it kind of makes sense to me. I mean, listen to some of these names that were paper moved. You had Gabriel Velarde, Jordan Spence, Marcus Phillips, Nelson Noget, Rasmus Kapari, Quinton Byfield, Braden Burke, and Frederick Allard. All paper transacted. Maybe those were kind of the moves.
Yeah, the internal deadline. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that looks good. I think the other thing too is like these teams. I don't know if Stockton and Ontario looked over at Chicago and thought too much about it, because these teams know so little about each other right now, just in terms of not having played each other and not really. I mean, the style of hockey is entirely different. And you look at these trades. I mean, with the exception of Rochester and San Diego making a move, you're looking at a lot of teams that are somewhat familiar with each other making moves at the deadline. And so, I think if you were Stockton and if you were Ontario, do you look at the Pacific Division and think, wow, there's somebody in this division right here that we need to be better? And I don't think the answer is yes. I think the answer is we've got what we need, and we're gonna go for it, and we're gonna hope for the best.
And I just kind of want to put this out there because we just got a final here. 4-2, the Chicago Wolves take it over the Cleveland Monsters to punch their ticket into the Calder Cup playoffs. They are the third team on top of those Reign and Heat to put their I guess I'm going to say it again, punch their ticket into the playoffs. And again, if you're not talking about how serious this team is, get a load of this stat line from Pyotr Kochetkov. Now 8-0-1 in his North American career, which is all of 9 games and still, but he hasn't lost in regulation yet. And if with giving up only 2 goals this game has actually brought his goals against up to 188 and his save percentage of 0.933 in in 9 games. This guy's a monster. It's
How
kind
can
of
he be a monster whenever he just beat the monsters?
he has eaten the soul of your team and has now become a monster.
I'm just looking forward to when the Canes trade him because they don't want to sign him for $3 million a year.
Yeah, and then he gets shelled for 9 goals against on his new team.
Well, to kind of end this segment, just to kind of tie back in with those paper moves, I took a look at Stockton, and this just tells you how much stock they have in the Calgary run in the NHL. There were 0 paper moves from Calgary to Stockton at the NHL trade deadline.
Oh, boy.
So they want to keep that talent up with Calgary, and they must just have a lot of faith in the team that's already in Stockton.
Calgary's gunning for that Pacific Division lead, and there's not a whole lot stopping them from moving on to further rounds in the NHL playoffs. So if I was the Flames, I'd be in quite the predicament. I'd be stuck between fire and a hard place on who I'm going to move in the trade deadline.
But what a good situation to have where both sides of your organization are doing that well, where that's your problem. I mean, come on.
It's been a while since I've ever seen that where both the AHL and NHL, this has probably happened at one point, but I can't remember a time when the both NHL club and the AHL club won trophies.
Is it going to happen? Could it happen? If maybe not the trophy, do they both get into the championship, though? Did they both make the finals?
I mean, you've got Colorado's a monster in the NHL. That's the only thing that's stopping Calgary, I think. But if they can find a way to get past Colorado, yeah, I think without a doubt.
So something from the stat line producers of Field Pass Hockey. It's been done 3 times in its league history. Once in 1976 and 1977 with Montreal, and in 1995 with New Jersey. And this could be a 4th. I don't want to predict anything, but
yeah, good call.
Yeah.
I think right now we can kind of call West in the NHL will be Colorado and Calgary, and then the West in the AHL will be Stockton and Chicago. That's where I'm going to put my bets on.
Feeling pretty good about that.
Well, let's hope that doesn't turn into an oof. Speaking of, it's time for the oof of the week, where Jeremy is going to kind of take over on this one, and he's going to give us a little bit of insight into the enigma that is the Rochester Americans.
I've got 2, and I didn't run the one by you, so I'm throwing you a curveball. But the first oof is on the ice. So on the ice, of course, the Americans fighting for every point that they can get. They really look like they had it in the bag against Bridgeport, like we've talked about on the show today. The Bridgeport Islanders have looked good in their last 10, and it really looked like it was going to be a good win for the Amerks on Sunday against them. But unfortunately, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, a name that we have not said on this show in a while, gave up a goal with only 7 seconds remaining. Michael Dal-Cole scored to give the Islanders to bring it back 5-5. And of course, the Islanders win the game in overtime. And that's a point that the Americans really can't give up right now. And so that's an oof. And that might be one that we look back at in a couple of weeks and we think, oh man, this was rough. But my more so not on the ice was wow. I was not a fan of their tribute to the Buffalo Bills over the weekend. The jerseys, did you all catch the jerseys?
I missed this.
It is such a weird promo to me because I think a lot of people, and I mean, to be fair, obviously the NHL squads there, the Pakulas have a little bit of a hand in this game, right? But there's been some beef between Rochester sports fans and Buffalo sports fans in the handling of the organizations over the course of the last year or so, if not longer. And this one just felt like it was kind of a weird oof to me. And so I'm shouting out the Bullets on that one. That one just felt strange. We've got it pulled up here. Tell me what year. What year do you think this photo was taken in? Like, what is?
Why is there stripe like a mohawk?
It's so bad. It's
The
like
mohawk stripe.
I'm assuming that's what the Bills helmet looks like. Correct me if I'm wrong, NFL fans. Get Potts on the show again. Like, I think that this might be what we're looking at, but yeah, not a big fan. Maybe that's their strategy. Maybe they're actually just trying to recruit Andrew Podorowski in the offseason, and they're doing everything they can to just pay homage to his Bills. But
do you ever think that there's like these players look at some of these jerseys and say, do I actually have to wear this? Are you paying me to wear this? Like, I know in like the East Coast, like at the East Coast Hockey League, ECHL rather, they wear these like Nickelodeon nights and that sort of thing, which is really cool, really great fan engaging. And there's like a Paw Patrol night or something like that. But like, do you think any of the players ever just sit down and say, you actually want me to wear that? And
you have to think. But I am loving. Deana's got the comments on the side, and everybody's eating this up. And I'm just thinking that everyone is buying into the Pagula's capitalist opportunity here to just make some money. I don't know. It's not a terrible jersey. I'll take that back. I think it's more so just the delivery and the fact that it's Rochester and Buffalo. They're not the same city. And I think that a lot of folks who live in the respective cities probably get, especially those in Rochester, get a little tired of the isn't that in Buffalo? Trope. So,
well, they gotta sell all the cool new looking jerseys so they can make enough money for the new football stadium that they're gonna build over there for the Bills. So that they're just gonna have the city of Buffalo pay for it all.
I was going to say this might be an oof on us because after looking at those comments, like a lot of people seem to really be digging it.
And I kind of like the angle of like, well, Potts loves the Bills. We love Potts.
Yeah.
Maybe we can kind of work something out here, you know?
But Potts doesn't play for the Amherst. If Potts played for the Amherst, then maybe I could be on board, but nope.
Yeah, I'm sticking to my guns on this one. I'm being stubborn. Convince me, AHL fans.
All right. Well, now it's time for us to convince each other in our swipe left and swipe right segment. Now, this is just like all your favorite dating apps where we're going to give a take. We're going to try to convince each other to swipe right because that means that we agree with it. If we don't, we're going to swipe left. If we really like it and we all get one a month, which I think a lot of us have used ours, we get a super swipe up. So these are hot takes from around the league. And just like the start of the show, we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order, which is going to be clockwise around the screen. So Zach, you get the first take.
Wow. I got the first chance to impress you. You opened up your dating app of choice and you say, ooh, we're starting off right. And my pick, it's not boiling by no means, but I think that there's a lot of contention at the bottom half of the Central Division. And, for a little bit of reference, the final two teams will not make it into each division's playoff category, including the Central Division. So the final three right now is Texas, and then below that is Grand Rapids and the Wild, right? I think that Texas is going to clinch it. Now, Texas hasn't really had the best of years, but in their past 10 games heading into Tuesday, they've had a 6-3-1 record through their past 10. So I think that Grand Rapids has been playing terrible and they'll continue, and that the Wild have been playing terrible recently and will continue. So I think that Texas will clinch the last and final spot.
Easy for me, no explanation, just right.
Oh, yeah, she just teased you on the super swipe. I thought she was going to give you one.
I already used mine. I think I think it was on you last week, Zach, wasn't it?
Yeah, you had the hat trick of super swipes last week.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, I missed a good one. But no, I think, it's hard because for the longest time all year we've been like, Texas is bad. Why is Texas bad? And now Texas is like a little less bad, and it looks like maybe they'll clinch, and they might have their chance at the postseason. Out of those three teams that you name, I think Texas is probably the team that's been the hottest recently, and I think that's what you need to clinch it up. So I'll swipe right.
Iowa, I'm convinced. I mean, they're not a good hockey team. They got Cody McLeod as their captain. They have 900 million penalty minutes. They're more concerned with breaking your nose than they are with breaking your defense. So, yeah, I mean, the Charlestown Chiefs were something, but that was the 70s. In this league, that's not going to get it done. And with the Griffins, it's just a matter of that they're not healthy. I don't even know who. I know who their goalie is going to be their next game, but you don't know. What is David Ayers going to have to come in for the Griffins? And it's I was trying. I really want to swipe left on this for my Griffins listeners out there because I want you guys to believe in this team. And then I looked that in 3 of your last 4 games, you have the Chicago Wolves going down the stretch. If you're fighting for your playoff lives and you have to play Chicago 3 times in a row, I'm going to have to swipe right. I'm sorry, Griffins.
Sorry to back you into a corner.
All they can hope for going down the stretch is that maybe Chicago decides to rest some guys because they're like clinched into a specific position no matter what. Maybe that would be a help. But Chicago doesn't strike me as the team to take it easy on literally anybody for any reason.
No, I think that would just like, oh, well, we can pad our stats here, make ourselves feel a little better as we, flex our muscle going into the postseason. And then they just see, the poor little kid on the playground that just is looking for a friend, and then Chicago's just going to come and take their lunch money, and it's going to be bad.
No doubt. Well, I think so. We're going clockwise. Is that right?
That's right.
Well, I think I know how to use a clock, and that makes me next. And I'm here to tell you all that there is going to be a tie for the final playoff position in points percentage in either the Central or the North Division.
Either?
Yeah, doesn't have to be both. Either.
Betting man's odds. We got a 1 in 2 chance, baby.
I'm telling you. You know me and my complex dating apps profiles, I've decided to just go simple on this one. Just give me 1 of 2.
Wow. You got to open it up, get as much of the pool as you possibly can in.
I'm telling you.
I'm not so certain about the Central, even though they're the one that has the team locked in at 500 right now, but you have Texas going one way and Grand Rapids going the other. So I can't see that one. But in the North, yeah, why not? The North has been nothing but chaos the entire season. So if we're shooting for chaos and you see the North in there, then yeah, I think the smart bet is to swipe right on it.
I think you're the kind of match that I wouldn't want to take home to my parents, would I? Like the rebellious type. Like the family dinner would be pretty interesting. But I kind of like the rebelliousness of it. I like the idea that the North is, now I do agree with Andrew that the Central Division is just, I think it's probably locked and loaded, given by my last profile. But I think that the North Division could be crazy enough to actually have some sort of contention, or like I wouldn't even be surprised if the Atlantic Division, and this is going to sound really off the wall, but the Atlantic Division comes down to it because it seems like all the bad teams are doing good and the good teams are doing bad. So I'm going to go for it. I think that the North Division will have that tiebreaker.
I think you'll eventually end up taking me home to mom and dad.
I don't know.
If there's anything that everyone should take from my time here is that I am a fan of chaos. Tiebreaker is ultimate chaos. So yes, I want to see it. So I'm going to swipe right because it'll happen.
You said the Atlantic. Oh, good.
I'm feeling more of the North.
Yeah.
Just because that race right now is so tight. We're going to get into that here in a little bit. But I was frantically trying to find the tiebreaker rules for this.
Well, I think I might have read it somewhere that both of the coaches had to come on to the Holy Grail podcast and do a rock, paper, scissors for the final position. Best two out of three.
I am down for that. Let's make it happen.
I'm down. I'm all the way down. You said the Atlantic, Zach. It made me think, could the Atlantic have a tie for first?
Ooh.
Well, I think so. From what I remember, when it comes to tiebreaker rules, and please don't quote me on this, when they did points before, it used to go off of wins. I think was the next one down would be wins, and then from there, I think it's goals for. But
yeah, I tried looking at the announcement of, okay, this is what it's going to be, how we're going to determine who gets into the playoffs. And there was nothing in there about tiebreakers. Like, oh, well, thank you, AHL. I greatly appreciate you. And I'm not seeing anything easily in the rule book either. So that's really, well, that sucks.
Well,
All right, I'm not used to going last with my hot takes, but I'm going to go ahead and jump on it anyway. So I kind of alluded to it earlier. We talked a lot about the moves at the trade deadline and everything. And kind of when you're talking about maybe making too many moves, I really do think that the Chicago Wolves are going to regret trading Maxim Letunov. And it's not just because he was a translator for Kochekov and Sarakov, because, hey, the Wolves have another bilingual player in Ivan Ladnia who can speak Russian for the two kids. But I think he was just so instrumental for this team, and not in a flashy way, but he was just the perfect kind of Coach Warsofsky player who would just show up every day and just got it done every shift and never took a shift off. He's just the hardworking guy that you could really depend on to kind of form up at center. And, he was good on faceoffs. He played every situation. I mean, just that kind of versatility. I get why the Wolves made the move, but I don't. I got a bad feeling about it. I've had a bad feeling since I read it when the news dropped, and I was like, oh, really? Oh, so I hope I'm wrong, but I feel like the Wolves are going to regret it.
Yeah, as somebody who grew up playing team sports, chemistry is everything, right? Like chemistry and just like certain pieces are really important. And, I definitely turn to you for any and all Chicago Wolves knowledge that I have or want to possess. And so I think it'd be pretty foolish for me to not agree with you here. Sometimes when you're as good of a team as Chicago is and you think that you have to keep going and going to make it better, you do too much and maybe throw off that chemistry. And so I'm hoping that's not the case, but I'm going to swipe right with you.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm going to have to regretfully swipe left because I do think that there's a lot that Chicago kind of took out of this trade deadline. Sure, they kind of lost a piece, but it's not their cornerstone. And I think that's kind of the big thing that they need to remember, that, when it comes to the Wolves, they have so many good players, and they were definitely the trade deadline winners, in my opinion. So for that, I think it's kind of hard to, you have to take the losses with the returns as well, right? And I think that's just a part of the gamble of trading at the deadline, is you don't know what's going to come back in return. And I think that, will they regret it? I don't think so. I think that they picked up a lot of good pieces. They had to look at what they picked up.
Well, Zach, basically, I'm just going to say ditto everything because he kind of took my train of thought. I'm just going to say great minds think alike. And yeah, will they miss him? Yes. Is it going to be to the point that it's a regret? I don't truly think so, despite everything. So I'm gonna have to just say ditto. So now it's time to move on to a segment that we call They Grow Up So Fast, where we highlight AHL players making moves in the National Hockey League. And, it really wasn't that long ago where we talked about Jordan Spence getting his first call up to the big show. Now he has his first NHL goal scored on March 26th in a 4-2 win over the Seattle Kraken. But not only that, it was the game winner. How about that to go down in your personal history? That's amazing. Great job, Jordan. Then also on the 24th, we had 2 additional debuts. First, Hayden Hodgson debut with the Flyers. In 16 minutes and 23 seconds of game time, he tallied 1 goal, 1 assist, in a 5-2 win over the St. Louis Blues. Chase Pearson for the Detroit Red Wings in 7 minutes and 40 seconds of ice time. Unfortunately, did not tally any goals or put up any assists, but he did have a pretty good, decent amount of ice time in a 5-2 loss against the Islanders. And then making their debut tonight as we're recording this is Noah Cates with the Philadelphia Flyers. All right, we're just going to go ahead and take a quick look at the scoring races because it has been a couple weeks since we looked at those. Guys, we have a new leader again. Well, he was a leader for a while, so we're just going to say welcome back. Andrew Podorowski back on top. Also finding his spot back in the top 3 is line mate Stefan Nason. We've talked a lot about the Wolves. I'm not sure if there's anything left to say about them, but it is a Western Conference affair once again with some, a little bit of jostling, but this Western Conference maintains a stranglehold in this category with not a single Eastern Conference team making their way onto the point getters out of skaters. Now, looking at the top goal scorers, last time we looked at this, we had one question. Stefan Nason leading the league in goals, and Martin Frk had been called up to the LA Kings at the time. Could Nason gain some distance, or will Sheldon Dries have something to say about it? Well, they were 1, 2, 3 respectively with 32, 31, and 31 goals. Now, Stefan Nason, well, he's up to 35 goals. Martin Frk, 33. Sheldon Dries, 32. I think that answers our question. All right, time to turn our sights to the rookies. Well, Jacob Pelletier has been on a roll, but who would have guessed that the top scoring rookie would come from Tucson? I don't think any of us had that on there. And then with the goals, of course, he has up this rookie category too, but Jack Quinn is back and he is rolling. What do you think, guys? Is he going to overtake Pelletier in this soon? We got 26 goals for Pelletier, 22 for Quinn.
He better, or else the Americans are going to be watching hockey at home in May. He better.
Fair.
I want to see him do it. Will he? I don't know. There's just not. There's only so many games left, and we got 1 month left in the season. It's going to be tight. I can't say one way or the other. It's going to be tight, though.
And it makes you think, just without injuries and without the Buffalo Sabres being the Buffalo Sabres, how far ahead would Jack Quinn be in this race right now? Just how – that many goals in looking at 31 games, 23 games less than Jacob Pelletier, and he's only 4 goals behind him. Come on.
Yeah, we'd be having a totally different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Easy. No problem. All right, one quick look at the goalies. Last time we took a look at this category, it was Alex Lyon leading in the goals against average race, but Providence's Troy Grosenick, he is helping out that Providence Bruins team and is now leading the league in goals against average with a 2.03. And once again, it's almost a Western Conference leaderboard here, except for Joey Decord out of Charlotte in that 5th spot with a 2.33. So now that we know what the individual players are doing, it's time to look at how the teams are stacking up in our quest for the Holy Grail. We need some lovely little music to go with that. We'll work on that. So quick look at the Atlantic Division. We're not going to go in reverse order here. East to west, let's do it. Now, guys, it's going to be a race to the finish for that 6th and 7th spot. Though, right now, the standings go Springfield Thunderbirds, Providence Bruins, Charlotte Checkers, Hartford Wolfpack, Hershey Bears, Bridgeport Islanders, Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, and feels like we always say that they're down at the bottom, but once again, Lehigh Valley Phantoms. If Hershey cannot figure themselves out, you have to wonder if Bridgeport or Wilkes-Barre Scranton might catch them. In this division, it's the top 6 teams that get into the playoffs. It's going to be a heated race down to the finish, I think. Right now, Bridgeport and Wilkes-Barre Scranton are both sitting at a 516 points percentage, trailing Hershey's 548.
Who'd have expected to see Bridgeport here at this point and going 6-0-1 in their last 7? I had them written off. I'm not gonna lie. I thought they were dead in the water, but there you go. Have yourselves a run there, Bridgeport.
Yeah, I think we all did, right? And talking about just a little bit of chaos down at the bottom of the division, we moved to the north, and nothing really new to say on Rochester other than the fact that losing games to teams that you're trying to stay ahead of isn't great form, and they're going to need to start rattling some off here pretty soon. Catch that on my Games of the Week preview later, but you can tell me that this division ends up being any sort of combination from second place to sixth place, and I would believe you. I have no way to predict what this is going to end up looking like, and I think a fairly decent team that probably entered the season with its sights on the playoffs is going to be pretty disappointed. And who had Riley Nash saving things for the crunch on their bingo board? Anybody?
I'd put my hand up, but I'd be lying.
Yeah, right.
As we move on over to the Central, it's again, kind of been the story of the season here. Not a whole lot of movement. We still have our Chicago Wolves up there, their juggernaut at number 1. Manitoba at number 2. Then followed through the middle, you got Milwaukee, Rockford, and Texas has jumped over into that 5th spot over Grand Rapids, who's fallen down to 6. And in the basement, it's those lovable Iowa Wild. And I just got to say that road trip for the Griffins is just mercifully over for them now. They went 1-2-1 over their last 5, and they've fallen behind Texas for that final spot there in the Central. I mean, right now both teams are at a 500 record, but as I said before, they're trending in opposite directions. And I mean, I question, are they going to be able to recover and make it back in the playoff picture? But again, with the news that Bradstrom getting called back up to Detroit, we don't know what the goalie situation looks like up there, if it's going to stabilize at all. With the injuries to Ryan Murphy, you can't understate how big of an impact he made to the lineup. And with him being out, it's a completely different team. And the guys work hard, but are they gonna be able to push it enough? And I don't know. There's just a lot of questions, not a lot of answers going on there in the bottom of the Central. So, but yeah, kind of remaining status quo through the rest of the standings here.
Yeah, and since we spoke last about the Pacific Division, not much has really changed either. And with the exception of San Jose and trying to prove who's worse against Tucson, things haven't really changed at the top either, where 2 teams have solidified their spots in Stockton and Ontario. So far to date, that's officially, but the Eagles are coming up in the wings, and they seem to be coming up next in line for the Pacific Division. And going up and down the list, it's Stockton, Ontario, Colorado, Bakersfield, Abbotsford, San Diego, Henderson, Tucson, and San Jose wrapping up the Pacific Conference.
All right, now that we know how everyone's doing and where they've been, time to look ahead in our Game of the Week picks. Once again, we're going to hit the Atlantic Division, guys. Take it away. What are your picks?
I'm going to start off here with Friday's matchup. We got Belleville going in Hartford. And this is going to be the home debut for Max Latunov for the Wolfpack. And I got to ask, is he going to be the difference in stopping the Hartford free fall in the standings? I personally hope so. Again, I know I gushed on him earlier, but this is a guy that I rooted for on and off the ice. And I hope he does find success with the Wolfpack, and it's going to start this weekend.
Yeah, and sticking with the Wolfpack, looking at their matchup on Saturday against Syracuse, Like you said, Hartford's 3-7 in their last 10. And the Crunch have got to smell blood in the water. They've really been making an ascent in the North, and they're going to want to keep it going against a team in Hartford that's struggling. So I'll be watching this one.
Yeah, and I got to be looking at Bridgeport and Wilkes-Barre Scranton. And like we mentioned earlier, watch out for the Islanders. I would be kind of scared heading into this one if I was Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Bridgeport has spent their last weekend adding to 7 wins to their past 10. They've really been a fierce team throughout the Atlantic Division.
And as we move on over into the North, I'm going Friday night again, but I'm going with Syracuse and the Utica Comets. And if you're looking only at the standings, you can kind of be led to believe that this might be a trap game for Utica at the top of the division, sitting comfortably. You got a team way down below there, but you got Syracuse who's going to be just, they're fighting for their playoff lives right now. Been on fire of late. We mentioned Riley Nash adding into that club, and it's a different Crunch team that was there in the beginning of the season. And the Comets, they had that hot start to the year, but I don't think they've looked like the world beaters that they did in the first half of the season. So I think this could be a lot more intriguing than standings make it appear to be.
Yeah, without a doubt. And without sounding like too much of a beat homer, to me, there's nowhere else you can look in the North other than the matchup between who's currently sitting at 6th and 7th in the division, and that's the matchup between the Americans and the Monsters this weekend. As Andrew said, Syracuse has a tough weekend at hand. They've got Utica, like I said, they got Hartford, and the Americans need to do what they didn't do last time around when they had a weekend series against a team that they really probably should have beat. And the Monsters, and they need to take care of business if they want to make the playoffs. This is a really big opportunity for them to make some dents in the gap that exists between them and Belleville.
Something a little further up north, Laval and Abbotsford on Saturday, both teams with very similar records. A nice 5-hour Air Canada flight in between them, but while both have their pretty well even records, not so are the division standings. And I can't help but think that for the Rocket, they're in the hot seat of who wants to be a playoff contender. So we'll have to see what happens.
Going on over to my beats in the Central, I'm going to go with Sunday afternoon matinee. We got the Toronto Marlies going into sunny Manitoba, taking on the Moose. And the Marlies have had some success against the Central Division Kings in Chicago here, but they're going to need some more of that as they take on Manitoba. And I think it's kind of interesting that these two teams haven't seen each other since opening weekend back in October. So two completely different squads, and all this time kind of, reacquaint themselves. That'd be a good one.
Yeah, I just booked my summer all-inclusive trip to Manitoba to get out on the beaches there. So really looking forward to it. But yeah, I've got to go with Texas and Grand Rapids again. Way too much on the line for this one not to be the matchup that I go with. And Zach, I think great minds kind of think alike on this one now.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same thing. And when I kind of think about Texas and how much is really on the line, we kind of alluded to it earlier, is that the playoff is going to boil down to this. And for Grand Rapids, this is a chance that you can guarantee that Texas will not get points, besides against Chicago. Sorry. But we already know that this is, so that's kind of the result here is, do you want a playoff spot? And this is a very, very contentious game for both these teams.
That should be on the playoff primer in the Central. Is how many games against Chicago do you have left? Somebody at the AHL has to get on that.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to my contacts and get them right on it.
Yeah, poor Griffins. Finally, over on the West Coast, we go to the Pacific. Can't really pick one. I'm just going with the Friday Saturday matchup with the Eagles at Ontario. And I mean, what more can you say? You got the 2 and the 3 there in that division. It's going to be just a huge matchup. Some of the best teams in the league that, they're tuning their games in for the final push into the playoffs. Ontario's already clinched, but, they're jostling for position there in a tough Pacific, and Colorado's approaching that magic number. And I think for them, it's going to be more of a statement series than anything that, Ontario's been one of the top dogs there, but these Eagles aren't very far behind, and they're going to be gunning for them. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I don't think any of us, speaking of things we had on our bingo board, Colorado being the 4th team to clinch a playoff spot this season. Anybody at the start of the year have that on your bingo board?
Not after the first week.
Yeah, correct. But they could do it. They could do it this weekend. And so for me, I'm looking at Iowa and San Diego. Not really a glorious matchup, but if Iowa has any desire to make it competitive in the Central and fight for a playoff spot, they're going to have a really good series against the Gulls. They're going to need to sweep all 4 points. So you got to look at this one as one that's a must-win for the Wild.
And how about Stockton and San Jose on Saturday? Top-notch all season, poised to be good with their record 8-2-0 through the past 10. San Jose poised to prove that they can win a game. 3 wins in their past 10 games heading into Tuesday. You know it's going to be a barn burner. I already have my bets. Well, I'll be excited.
Zach just wants to watch the steal the lunch money from the poor little kid on the playground.
I'm a cruel man.
All right, we're going to go ahead and head into the final segment of our bonus round. And I apologize for the little sound of one of my dogs in the background. He just woke up from a nap. So I apologize for that noise, but we're going to go ahead and head into the bonus round. Now, Andrew has been completely tight-lipped, so I have no way to seg into this one. It's just, Andrew, we're excited to hear what you have for us. Take it away.
Yeah, so as we're getting into, talking about playoff clinching, playoff scenarios, postseason hockey, all that, I've just been kind of looking at the rundown of our last winners historically, say over the last decade. And what I noticed was that it's a lot of low seeds, division winners that kind of, there's not a whole lot of chaos in the AHL playoffs as I've seen recently, coming out and winning the whole thing. So I got a question for you guys, and if there's a tiebreaker, we'll go through but do you know what the lowest seed was to win the Calder Cup over the last 10 years? I just need a number. I don't need the team, but I will say that the team was mentioned today. There was a time where I was going to say there's foreshadowing there, but I'll leave that for the tiebreaker if it's needed. I just need a number.
I'll go 5.
3.
God, the AHL has changed it up so much.
Go right in the middle, buddy. We know you're thinking of it.
It's just so hard because how do you in the AHL? I can't even tell you what the last 10 years have looked like in the playoffs in terms of seeding. I'll go 6.
Deana, you hit it right on the button. It was the team, you mentioned them. It was Bingo. It was the Binghamton Senators in 2011 that were the 5 seed. So there was double foreshadowing there for you.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm a big underdog fan. I always want to see the scrappy, especially with the extended format. I'm like, oh yeah, dude, I want to totally see a 6 seed come out there and make something happen. Let's go Henderson. Oh yeah. But
how do you let's say Henderson does make the playoffs and let's say they win the Calder Cup. That hurt me to say out loud.
Right.
Let's say that happens. How do you look at that, right? They're the 7 seed in their division, but that's realistically, right, to me, the 12th team in the West. It's hard to not think of it that way.
Playoffs are a totally different animal.
That's right.
So
Except I saw so many top of the division, top in the league that just goes through and blows it away. I find it so we see last year, we see another team like Montreal who doesn't even, let's be real, sorry, Zach, they did not deserve to even be in the playoffs, but they just got hot in the right time, and there they are. And, riding the coattails of Carey Price doesn't hurt it a bit. And I'm not saying that Calvin Pickard is going to be the Carey Price of this year, but he's got to get healthy first.
The Wolves have got to do it. The Wolves have got to find their Carey Price. And historically, there's always been a good goaltender in the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah. You don't normally get a bad goaltender who, comes out of nowhere. So 90% of the time, I don't want to say like Cam Ward or somebody like that. But I mean, when you look at it historically, and the Wolves have that, which is a big piece of their game.
Yeah, that Kochekov kid, he's so good. It's stupid. And I've had such a fun time covering him, watching his games, and just looking at this kid just come in straight from Russia, and he had taken a lot of time off because the KHL suspended its season. They had the Olympics, and then they're just like, okay, it's done. We're going right into the playoffs now. So him to get that long layover off and to come in and do what he's doing, if he keeps this roll up, it's going to be really tough to see anyone knocking Chicago out in a 5 or 7 game series. I don't want to sound like a homer because they're my beat, but I mean, how I just don't see it.
I think we're all ready in playoff mode here. We're all ready for it. But that's actually going to be it for the Holy Grail this week. If you like us, please subscribe, like, share, rate this podcast, tell all your friends. If you really like us and want to chat with us, be sure to give us all a follow on Twitter. You can find me at FPH Monsters.
Are you still going in reverse alphabetical order?
Whatever way you want to go.
I'm FPH Marlies.
And then I'm at FPH Americans.
And then you can find me at FPH Wolves or at FPH Griffins.
And also be sure to check out all of Field Pass Hockey's other podcasts: Inside the SPHL with James Hayes, Syracuse Speaks with Alexander Ackerman, Monsters Musings with Jacob Forster, and of course myself, and the 3 Periods podcast with Matthew Harding. On behalf of all of us here at the Holy Grail, we hope you have an amazing week, and we're going to see you next Thursday. Bye.
This has been the Holy Grail Podcast. Have a question or a topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.